Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Straight Out of Prison podcast. My name is James J. Jones, and this is my story.
And this is Haley Jones, and this is his story that has now become a part of my story.
Girl, we got a story.
And actually, I would have to say that last episode we talked about Kairos. We introduced Kairos and just the journey, getting started there, which... You know, the intro, we always say your story has become a part of my story. And really that all started with Kairos because...
That's how we met.
That's how we met. So that's kind of, we're getting there.
That's one silver lining and all that. I mean...
Yeah.
And I went back and listened to the last couple episodes and I feel like, gosh, I was just being so, negative. But it's the truth of where I was and what I was going through. It was not... I guess what should have been a very happy time for me was a very miserable time for me because of all the stuff with the girl and with Sean and her family. And then, opening a business in a restaurant is hard anyways. But then you add all that stuff on top of it, it's just, ugh.
Well, you were pushing through a lot of obstacles too. And I think everybody can relate. And I think this is what the storytelling is all about, is that it's your story from your perspective and what you were experiencing and feeling at the time. And so therefore it's very, just authentic. And I know we mentioned last time, but it's crazy how when you're telling the story, even after we record, like in our daily lives, I can feel you in that same place of whatever it is we were talking about.
I have been. I actually, the last couple of weeks since we taped the last two, I've even been I catch myself because I'm aware. But if you say, hey, can you take out the trash or something? I'm like, don't tell me what to do. Don't control me. It's like I'm back in that place where I'm like, but there was a narrative that was fed to me at that time by my leaders that, you're just messed up. You don't know how to cooperate. You need all these things, which only ended up making me feel like a project. But now on the other side of that, 15 years later, there was a lot of stuff that happened during that time that shouldn't have happened. That whole situation, that whole scenario shouldn't have gone the way it did.
Well, hindsight is 20/20 for sure. And,
absolutely.
And I have to say, though, all of the struggle that this was, there was a lot of positive.
Oh, yeah.
And we've talked about multiple times, just even before we started doing this podcast, that if you hadn't gone through all of that or walk that journey, that path, that way.
Yeah, I wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Right. You wouldn't be sitting here. We wouldn't have met, or our kids wouldn't be here. So there's so many golden nuggets. I don't know.
It is. And it gets better. We get through the hard part, the whole, I learned enough during this season about running a business to write 10, 12 books. Honestly, just things that I still carry with me to this day, things we use in our business now. But it was a burden. It was a hard time.
So I don't know if this is the time to say it. Maybe I'm saying this prematurely. I don't know. But, in our talks we've had, once again, before we started recording this podcast at all, you had mentioned that, you'd been in prison. This is straight out of prison.
Yeah.
And all that came with that. But then just... as you have reflected and looked back, that you felt this Kairos journey or the Kairos restaurant and all that that entailed, you felt like you were in a second prison.
Let's get to that when we get to it.
Okay, premature. All right.
No, but it did. In a way, it became a burden and a pain and just a trial to endure. That was very similar to being in prison.
I don't want to take away any responsibility, not that you were put in prison, because you made a lot of those decisions that got you.
Oh, yeah.
Which is what you were saying. You've learned so much, through the process.
So let's go back to January 2007 and we'll walk through, the first year or so of being in business.
Okay, so January 2007, that's when you opened the doors to Kairos.
No, your details are not.
Sorry.
Haley never knows details.
This is true.
It's so funny. I can tell your family stories that were told to me by your mom better than you can.
And legit.
And they're
I'm
third
sitting
or fourth hand.
We're sitting here looking at a whiteboard. I'm not going to lie, with notes right now. But, my mind just gets jumbled up. Okay.
So we opened, last episode, we opened Kairos Cafe, or Kairos Catering, the first week of December 2006. against my will. I kind of got pushed into opening early.
Right. Yes.
Which I thought was ridiculous.
I remember now.
I thought was ridiculously stupid. Like, why would we try to open a restaurant around Christmas? Because people already have their plans. They already know where they're going. They already know, who's going to be catering their parties. Like,
right.
Let's just start off fresh in the new year. But, Steve kind of pushed me into that, and I went along.
Yeah.
Which I was right, because there was no. We didn't get any leverage during those, because we're only going to be open 2 weeks, because you close. I was going to close the week of Christmas. I wasn't going to even try to do that. So we got through the first day. It was a neat day in some ways, but it was a very hard day for me because I was nauseous and I wanted to throw up. And
yeah, I remember you saying that, actually.
I was exhausted, like in every circle of my being. My mind, my heart, my soul, my body, everything was just depleted. And, but we got through it. We made it through. And I knew that in order to start something, you just got to do it. So we pulled the trigger. We got there, got through the first day. Fox 6 came out and did a news story. And that was pretty neat. I mean, I thought that was going to give me a bunch of business. If you're on all the news broadcasts, I think they did it 2 days in a row. Every broadcast, they did a different little thing about Kairos Cafe. But what I learned during that time was, the saying, if you build it, they'll come. Mm-hmm. Well, I built it, but they didn't come. They didn't show up. And I was, first couple, 2 or 3 weeks, I was fine, because I was like, we shouldn't be open now anyways.
Right.
When you start off at the new year. But then we got through December, 2 or 3 weeks, and it was hard working with them. It was weird.
Why was it weird? I mean, maybe we've covered this.
There was so much stress going on, but because Sean and I were in a relationship together.
Right. So, yeah, the last 2 episodes, those were happening simultaneously. So then you just carry that forward.
So, but now her mom is my dining room, running the dining room. Her brother-in-law is my catering guy, and he's working with me. And then initially we had 2 other people, Wanda, who was one of Steve's church members. She was the bus person. And I loved Wanda. She was all in. But then I had a server at Leonardo's named Sandy that went to Grace and Truth a little bit. Mm-hmm. She was kind of like you. She would come one Sunday and then not come for 4 and then come again.
What are you talking about right now?
Oh, wait, that's not really like you. I'm sorry.
That's not like me.
I mean, she was just like flighty. I loved her, but Steve wanted people to be like committed to the Grace and Truth and do all the things.
Well, I can understand that. You want someone to be, if they're coming,
yeah, but you can't force that on people. I mean, that's not Jesus. God don't force stuff on us. Like, why would we feel like we need to force it on other people?
Yeah.
But in the beginning, when the first week or 2 that we were open, he called her in the office and he told her, if you're going to work here, you got to come to church. You can't keep missing church. And she was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, she was like, what is he talking about? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to go find out. So it was like the first like weirdness that started happening. He was like demanding her, if you're going to work at Kairos, you need to make sure you're coming to church. And I was like, hold up. I think that is even illegal. Like, you can get me sued over that. Like trying to mix that, like,
yeah,
telling somebody that their employment depends on them coming to church. I mean, that's
when
weird.
you put it that way.
It was weird. It was like another red flag. And then there was a lot of little stuff that came up during that time that it just made me feel like I didn't know Steve. I thought I knew him. I thought I knew what he believed. I thought I knew about the church. And I'd been, at that time, connected to the church for like 7 years, to him for like 8 or 9 years. And it just started making me think, like, I don't really know what I'm getting myself into, because this is weird.
So, hold on. I think I need to pause here, because I think when you say you didn't feel like you really knew Steve because these things that were bothering you were coming up, but I think maybe a more accurate way to say that is you didn't know Steve in this particular situation and environment, because he had been an unbelievable counselor and father figure. But then when you introduce this new situation of a business, and there's just a lot more dynamic. So,
and his daughter.
And his daughter, you're dating his daughter. Yeah, that.
Well, there was a lot of weird stuff happening with that too.
I just don't want it to feel like we're throwing or you're throwing him under the bus because I know how much you love and respect him.
And I still love and respect him.
But I think when anybody is thrown into a new situation with new dynamics, like things come out that maybe later we regret or think like maybe I didn't handle that the best way.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's what happened.
Well, I'm trying to put myself back in these first 6 months or so because all this was happening at one time, and it was very hard for me, and I felt like an alien. Like I've been totally taken out of my world and put into another world, and then there were so many like just things that kept happening. Like they had a lot of times they had Sunday dinner at their house, and
Who had Sunday dinner at their
Steve
house?
and Lenore. Well,
Okay.
Sean and I were dating by this point. Like
So y'all were hot and heavy. Y'all were like
her
committed.
divorce was
Yeah.
final. There was nothing else they could say, so they kind of, they quit. They kind of quit trying to come at us, but then at the same time they had like that disapproval, like that stiff upper lip kind of, disapproving thing that was going on.
I have to say, you have a heightened awareness. Like disapproving
I
looks
know
and
it.
like vibes
I
from
know
people.
it when it happens.
It's true. You are usually right, but you definitely have a
But by
higher
this time,
sensitivity.
I don't like it. I hate it. I hate it. So there was one Sunday right after we opened that they were having dinner at their house. We went over after church. It was me and Sean, and then Brandon was with us that day. And they decided to have a ceremony after dinner.
Are you calling it a ceremony or?
It was a ceremony.
Let's define what this ceremony was.
It was one of the, I'd been in so many uncomfortable situations with them, but this was very hard for me to sit through. And I was so angry and so aggravated and just pissed. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this here with me here? Like, why are you doing this? So the ceremony was, they wanted to have a healing ceremony for Shauna's divorce. Because it had been like a year, something.
With you there?
Yes, with me sitting at the table with Brandon there. They like brought out balloons and flowers and
Okay, this
gifts.
is what I want to know and what everyone else wants to know too.
It was weird.
What does a healing ceremony for a divorce look like?
It was basically Steve was saying, I just want to declare this fully over and get full closure. And I was like, why can't you get full closure without me being here?
How long
is
was this
crazy.
after the official divorce?
6 months.
Okay.
So I don't know. It was some thing they do. They come up with this like ceremony or what. I mean, I hate to call it. That's what I told her when we got back in the car. I was like, I'm never coming over here again. I mean, this is ridiculous. Like, put me through this like ceremony.
Okay, but hold on. What bothered you so much about this? Because this is really what you longed for.
Because we were together. Like, we were.
Okay,
like,
but the ceremony was celebrating the end to that. So what about this
it
bothered you
wasn't
so
like
much?
celebrating. It was like this, like a death thing. I don't know. It was weird. And even Brandon, who was like 16 at the time, he knew it was weird. He was like looking around. You know how Brandon is. He was looking around. He was like, well, James is good to her. He's going to take good care of her. And Steve like snapped at him like, we're still praying about that. So it was just, the whole thing was twisted. And then, you would get people come in, like after we opened Kairos, Steve ate lunch in there every day and had all his meetings in there. And they would never refer to Shauna as my girlfriend or me as her boyfriend. They would say that, the way he said it was, this is Shauna's friend, which was just like, it just felt like a slap. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it made me feel. I didn't like the way that they were coming at me. And now I was in business with them.
Okay, I know that this is a totally different like story and background, but a funny thing when you say that, it reminds me that my parents would never, like, even if, so I dated a guy in high school, Gio, but she would never call him my boyfriend. She always called.
Your mom?
No, yes, my mom. She would always call him my friend. So she would introduce, she's like, this is Haley's friend, Gio. This is and even in college, she would never, like, I guess, identify the guy I was dating as a boyfriend. She would always call him a friend.
Well, they wouldn't just do that. They would like overtly like plan these like dinners, like where somebody was coming in and let me know that I wasn't supposed to come.
Wow.
And so it was.
They were definitely like rejecting you on some level.
Yeah, well, just in front of like when the like Mennonites came to town.
Yeah.
Like, or if some ministry person was eating in Kairos, like it was like, oh, James is the owner of Kairos, blah blah blah, all this blah blah blah. But then Like, let's not talk about that other. And I just,
You mean the other of you dating Shauna?
me and Shauna dating, and
Yeah.
we were dating. I mean, we were together.
We're hot and heavy.
We were 100%. We were all in. Mm-hmm. And if it hadn't have been for me opening Kairos, we probably already would have been married. Because I would have, I was ready.
Yeah.
So that whole thing was weird. And then she had this weird thing about my house. She wanted me.
Who had this weird thing?
Shauna.
Okay.
She wanted me to sell my house and us buy another house. And I was like, this is a perfectly great. I mean, God has blessed me with this house. So it was.
And just to be clear, this is the first house you bought ever.
Yeah.
Since you've been president. Okay, yeah.
And so I even said, and she was like, but you've already hung pictures on the wall. I said, we can take all the pictures down and start over. Like, I'm not selling my house. I'm not doing all that. It's ridiculous. I mean, it was stupid. Like, why would you do that? Like, it's not like you're renting another apartment. Like, selling a house, I mean, that's just a big deal. But anyways, I said in the last episode, I took out it was like $38,000 equity line on my house. And then I'd maxed out all my credit cards and turned them into cash to finish opening up Kairos. So I was under a mountain of debt that I just couldn't keep up. Like, I couldn't come out of it. So I ended up caving in and deciding that I need to sell my house. Like, I need to do something different. So, and that made her happy. But it didn't make me happy. And it was just like, I don't know. I just felt like now I'm giving up my home. I've given up everything for this girl.
It's almost like you had given up your stability in general that you had fought for since getting out of prison.
It was a weird time. So the week off that we took before we came back in January, I decided to go ahead and move so I could, I had in my mind it'd be easier to sell a house if it was empty, especially a townhouse like that because I had all my stuff in there. Mm-hmm. So she had rented an apartment, south side, like 2 blocks from Kairos. It was like in the, like where the UAB kids lived.
Yeah.
And it was a little 1-bedroom. And so I thought, well, I'll get close to her. So I actually let her go pick me out an apartment, which was a bad idea. Because she picked out, like, it was one of those old, like, it was like 2 stories. And there was like 2 apartments up top, 2 down bottom, but it was like built in like, when George Washington was president.
Minor exaggeration, but that's okay.
But it was right in the heart of UAB and Southside, and I could have walked to work if I wanted to. So, and it was not even a block from her, because she was in an apartment, so it was like half a block from her. Mm-hmm. And so I called and did a lease on that, and I don't know, it was just so much going on, and just my identity I felt like my identity was being attacked. Let me back up. The reason why I let her pick out my apartment was I found an apartment like on Lakeshore, like halfway between where I lived and where Kairos was. Mm-hmm. And I went in to try to sign a lease and all stuff, and they told me they had to run my license to make sure I'd never been convicted of a felony. And I was like, but I have been convicted of a felony. And she
no need to do that.
No, but the girl was like this young girl, this office girl. She's like, oh, it's okay. It's only if it's been, it almost is like something serious like robbery or attempted murder or something. So I was like, yeah, I check all those boxes. So, but I didn't know that was a thing because my first apartment that I rented was from like a local, like I didn't know they could like not rent you an apartment. So I went through an identity crisis with that. Like I'm not selling my house to go try to rent something somewhere. But then, but the bills were piling up and I needed to move on. Like I needed to do something different. So I ended up, put my house on the market. I moved in this apartment on South Side, and the first night that I was there, I couldn't stop crying. Like I just couldn't. This is not my home. Like what am I doing here? This is weird. And the plumbing didn't work. The air didn't work. It was just. It was
like
just
everything
bad.
was being stripped from you, kind of, or you. I mean, you were allowing it. Like I said in the beginning,
I made the choices.
Yeah,
I did, but it was a hard time.
Yeah.
But then, we came back. We opened up. My house didn't sell right away like I thought it would. Because those townhouses where I lived, they usually sold in a week. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't selling that fast. And then, I was trying to do for sale by owner too, which was, ended up being a bad idea. Mm-hmm. I let one of my neighbors was a realtor. Was like, I can sell this for you in a week if you'll let me. And I was like, look, this is what I got to have. Do whatever you want to. Just help me. And, eventually she did. But it was just a weird time. And then, like, waking up in the morning, getting dressed, going to work, and prepping all that food for somebody that wasn't coming it was just, like, hopeless.
Yeah.
And then, I had, like, Sandy and Lenora and Wanda and Jerry. They would go out and hand out flyers and put on people's cars. And, it was just, I was just like, I've never been in a business like this.
Well, you were coming off the cusp of Leonardo's where it just flooded in, basically, right? I mean, there was so much traffic. So
My
many
whole
people coming
history,
in.
though, was that I'd never worked in a restaurant that had to advertise.
Yeah.
Like, when I was in high school, I worked for Ryan's Steakhouse.
Yeah.
$0 spent on advertising. Like, they wanted word of mouth. When I went to work for Mr. Filletta, Mr. Bruno had this thing. Like, we don't want to spend our money on advertising because if we're doing all that, it's not even going to, it doesn't matter. So here I am. I built it. They didn't come. Now I'm stuck, and now I just got to figure it out. At the same time, I needed an income because I had all these bills and all this stuff going on. So I worked at Kairos in the morning. In the AM, I worked at Kairos. And in the PM, I worked at Leonardo's. So I'd given up, like, the management part of it, but I was still, like my mom had taken that over, and I was training her and all that stuff. That was what Tony wanted. But I was still, like, on the schedule. I still worked, like, 5 or 6 nights a week.
Wow.
Just to have an income. Like, I
Right.
couldn't get an income from Kairos, but the weird thing about Kairos, the first 3 or 4 months that I was open, I made more in tips in one shift at Leonardo's than we made in one day at Kairos.
Wow.
But I had 6 people that I had to pay. So it was just like trying to figure all this stuff out. And it was it was a heavy weight, and it was weird. And I was completely and utterly just, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
And it was always something going on. It was always some kind of drama, something happening. Like, Lenora would get aggravated with me about something that she felt like I should be doing that I said I wasn't going to do. And instead of, like, coming and talking to me about it and us figured out, she would call Shauna and try to get Shauna to talk to me about it. And then that caused conflict between me and her. And really, that was one of the worst fights we ever had. It was her mom. Like, and I could hear her on the phone with her mom telling her, well, I think we should do blah, 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 all this. And then just being like, no, I mean, this is twisted. You know what I'm saying? It was just bad.
So, I mean, like, I am very empathetic.
Yeah.
We just had this conversation the other day,
You're
like,
big on empathy.
not to do with this at all, but, like, and I can see how that could happen so easily, but, like, in your situation
It was wearing me out.
Well, in your situation that I wasn't there, and it's like zoom out. I didn't even know you then.
Yeah.
But, like, zooming out, I can see that it was just, like, very dysfunctional.
Yeah, it was twisted.
On many levels, yeah. And not, to no one's fault. I don't think anybody wanted it to be that way.
No.
Was trying to.
It was, we made decisions.
It was just creating a not good, healthy, like, productive environment, it seems like.
Yeah, it was not. It was,
Yeah.
It was, for me, it was misery. It
Yeah.
was misery, and then trying to figure out how to get people to come there. So I got to a point where I figured out I'm here. I just got to figure it out. So that's what I'm going to do. So, you know me. Once I'm all in, I'm going to figure out a way, and I'm going to push through.
And I love that about you. That's the strength.
It is a strength, but it can also, like, keep you stuck somewhere.
Right.
Like, if I had to do this over again, I would just quit. Be like, no, I'm not doing it. This ain't working out. This is obvious that it ain't working out, and let's go do something else.
Yeah.
But I say that now, but at the same time, I knew I had to keep going because something about the way I'm wired, I don't want to go backwards. Like, I can't go back to Leonardo's with my tail tucked in between my legs, even though Tony would have welcomed me with open arms. Well, actually, at this time, I hadn't even never really left. Like, I was
Right. Yeah, you're still there at night.
Like, I didn't have the title of running the restaurant part, but I was still running it.
Right.
Pretty much. I mean, my mom was doing it. She was doing a great job. She was doing stuff the way I trained her, but she was not me.
Right.
So it was time to figure it out.
Okay, so what did you do to figure it out?
Well, to start off with, Steve was like, let's do flyers and just hand out flyers. And I was like, okay. oh, we can try that. But it wasn't produced. I mean, I think we got one person that came in that said they got a flyer. And it's like, I've already spent $50 on flyers and nobody's coming in, so we got to do something else. So I think it was Shauna that gave me, she heard somebody speaking at a business thing that she was at. They talked about a book called Guerrilla Marketing. And she went and bought me a copy of the book. I mean, she was very supportive of me during this time because this was a hard time, like emotionally and it was just hard. And it was probably even, ramped up way harder for her because, her family was all twisted up in this. So she bought me this book called Guerrilla Marketing, and I didn't read it at first. I just threw it on my desk like I ain't got time for all this, hocus pocus nonsense. But I was desperate, so I had to figure it out. So I was waking up. I would go home after Leonardo's sleep for like 3 hours, set an alarm, and I would go out and go downtown around all the hospitals, and I started like posting flyers on telephone poles. I mean, this sounds crazy, but I was desperate. I was willing to do whatever I needed to do.
Right.
But I went to this was when Kinko's was still a thing. Like I would go to Kinko's and I would get the biggest ones you could get and, tell them about Kairos. We got lunch, come eat, all the things. And I would go around with a staple gun and because they'll pull them down, like stuff like that, because it's illegal to do that.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know if it's illegal. You're just not supposed to do that.
Oh, the irony. Yeah.
But I was just like, I got to find a way to get the word out. I mean, the food's good. Services, everything. It's like if people could just know that we're here. But all the research that I'd done on Ollie's did not apply in 2006 because Ollie's had been shut down since like 1990.
Right.
So it was just, it was rough. But she got me the Guerrilla Marketing book, and I finally got to a place where I thought, well, I don't know what I don't know, so maybe I should give this a shot. So I read the book. I mean, I think I sat down and read the book cover to cover, just trying to, I was desperate. Like, I gotta do something. I gotta figure this out. And then all my advice that I was getting from, it wasn't good advice. Like, no, I shouldn't say it wasn't good advice. It wasn't
from who? Advice from who wasn't good?
Well, I mean, I had my core group. Like, I had Steve and Lenore and Jeremy. They were like the team.
Had they ever started a business? Did they have any experience there?
No.
And yet they were your core team.
Well, it was what I was in. And then because we were a corporation, we had to have a board. So we set up a board. Steve named himself president of the board, of course. And then, but we would have these board meetings where it would be the four of us, and it would be like this. Okay, I call this meeting to order. And I was like, it's just us. Like, do we have to do all that? I make a motion to move to do this and that. I'm like, it's just us. Like, do we have to,
but part of me, I can understand like following protocol and doing things like the right way.
I get that, but he was getting something out of this. This was feeding something in him, but it was at my expense. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I'm the one on the line. I mean,
you're the one that sold your house and has the bills piling up and is working two jobs.
Stacking. It was awful. But like from his perspective, he got to be president of the board and play chairman like Donald Trump in Apprentice. And then,
James,
this is how it felt. I'm not saying this is how it was. I think this is how it was. It was like feeding something that was weird, and I didn't like it.
Use another word besides weird to help me understand.
It was odd.
That's the same as weird.
And I just felt like this was all coming at my expense. This was all on my back.
It was just unsettling. It didn't feel right.
No, it didn't, and there were so many things that didn't feel right. And then like the stuff was because Sandy quit after that. Like, I'm out. Like, I can't do all this. Like, ain't no church people gonna be telling me what to do. Like on my job, like telling me I got to come to church or I'm gonna risk losing my job. So she moved on. All that stuff. And then during that time, Steve appointed Jeremy as the facilities coordinator director of the building. And it just meant that he was in charge of the property and all the things. And it felt like a slap in the face to me because I was like, so y'all going to give him an extra salary and give him a title in the church, But he's going to be trying to do all that while he's working for me, while I'm paying him money that I can't afford to pay him. It didn't, just all this stuff. It was, I would never do this again. Like I learned through this process, like if something is not right, you need to call it out and you need to deal with it, and you don't need to just go along. But I didn't know. And I still had such respect for him, and
Yeah, of course.
It wasn't good.
Okay, so how did you move forward? Let's get there.
Okay, so we did I was going around doing all the posters,
Yeah.
but then I wasn't sleeping, so I was dizzy. It was because I was working full time at Kairos, a full time job, 5 days a week, and then I was working 5 nights a week at Leonardo's, full time job. So I was exhausted,
burning it at both ends.
Yeah, but I couldn't not work because I had to pay my bills, and
And also, this wasn't. I know we're kind of beating this out, but it wasn't a job like you work and then you leave at work, because there were so many things intertwined, and
it was bad. It was twisted. I need to quit saying it was bad.
Yeah,
but it was. This was not.
But it was.
This was not a good time for me. And then in the middle of all this, my mom would come and be like beg me to quit. You can quit. You don't have to do this.
Quit Kairos, she meant?
Yeah, you can just give this up. You don't have to do this. Just come. Please don't sell your house. Please don't do this. Please don't. And I didn't want her to be right. So that was part of my digging my heels in.
Yeah.
But in a lot of stuff, she was discerning things, and in a lot of ways, she was right. But I mean, I couldn't admit that then. I can admit it now. But I was determined to figure it out. But in the middle of all this, it was February of 2007. A hard time for me. Mm-hmm. We had shut down for lunch at 2:30, and everybody was on my nerves. Jeremy was on my nerves. Steve was on my nerves. Lenore was on my nerves. And it was just it was one of those days where everything was bothering me, and I was just I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here, get out of this. I can't do this. And there was a car outside that kept circling the building. And Jeremy, he's kind of like Royal. My son Royal. He's very aware. He pays attention to everything, and he would call attention to everything. Mm-hmm. He was like, why does this car keep circling? And I said, it don't matter. We're closed, so who cares? Why do you even care? And a car pulled up to the front. It was just a regular car. And these 2 guys jumped out, and they came to the front door. And they said, we need to see James Keith Jones. And I said, that's me. What's up? And they were like, can you step outside? And I said, sure. I mean, I thought it was like a customer or something. So I step outside, and he said, I'm so-and-so with the U.S. Marshals. I have a warrant for your arrest. What? And I thought it was a joke. I mean, I thought it was a joke. He said, I have a warrant for your arrest. And I said, okay, ha, ha, ha. Because I had a friend, Paul Windorf, who was actually an elder at Grace and Truth. He was a Hoover police officer. Mm-hmm. He's in the FBI now. He's moved up. He's awesome.
Up and out.
But he would play jokes on people with his police car. Maybe I shouldn't be telling that, but he would pull people over, just as a funny, friends, people he could play with that. So I thought it was Paul Windorf playing a joke on me. I really did. And I was like,
terrible
okay.
Joke.
I was like, okay, ha. But they turned me around and put handcuffed me behind my back, and then reached down and put handcuffs on my feet. And I was like, oh shit, what's happening here? And
so this was a real arrest.
They arrested me. And I didn't know if I didn't understand what's happening. I was like, I know I ain't did no crime. What's happening? And then I looked back, and there was Lenore and Jeremy and Wanda, and they were looking at me like I did something wrong. And I was like, I don't know what this is.
That is insane. So you're standing outside your restaurant and all this, and they are putting you under arrest.
They arrested me.
They handcuffed your hands and feet.
And threw me in the back of the car and sped away.
What?
It was, I don't know. It was very traumatic.
What were you thinking?
I didn't know. I was like, this is a night. I'm asleep somewhere. It's a nightmare. I'm having a bad dream. I'd seen some USA movies where people got wrongfully convicted or arrested of things. And I was like, is this a am I asleep and I'm dreaming this because I watched this USA movie about this guy getting wrongfully convicted? But they sped me away.
Oh my gosh.
So here I am. I'm in this hardest part of my life. This is hard, what I'm doing.
And you've been through prison, so that says something.
Yeah, but the feeling of handcuffs on you, you don't know what that feels like.
No, I don't. And I'm thankful I don't.
Well, by this time, I've been free for 8 years. So this was, I thought I was dreaming. So they get me to the Jefferson County Jail in downtown Birmingham. They go to book me in, they fingerprint me, all the things, and I still don't really understand what's happening. It was one of the robberies that happened in 1993 that I went to prison for in Dale County, which was Dothan. It would have been the second or third one that we did.
In Alabama.
Yeah, that they never processed. So when they told me that, I was just like, I'm screwed. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
Wow.
So they have this thing where they, in Jefferson County, it's like striped uniforms they put on you have stripes on them. And if you have a black and white stripe, you're like floor 1 through 15. But if you have red stripes, you're on the top floor, which means you're a violent criminal, like a murderer, but, armed robbery, stuff like that. So they put a red jumpsuit on me and threw me in a holding cell.
Oh, my God.
And, all the other people in there, oh, you got on the red stripe, what you did? And I was like, I ain't did nothing. I don't know. And they were like, yeah, everybody say that. But I didn't know what to do, and I was exhausted.
So, okay. So just to be clear, this was from the original crime spree.
1993.
1993.
Actually, the crime was in 92.
How does that happen? That when you say they didn't process it, or
they'd never like followed through with it.
And so why all of a sudden did it just pop up?
I don't know. As long as you have an active warrant against you, it can go like dormant. But if you get somebody in a...
Do they have a quota they need to meet or something? I'm just curious.
No, I found out later they were trying to clean out their files. And my file came up, like, well, we've never dealt with this, so they were going to deal with it now.
Wow.
So, but I mean, this is robbery 1. This is armed robbery. This is average is 20-year sentence.
Did they see that you had already served time and all that, or you don't know?
They didn't ask those questions.
Wow.
So I didn't know what to do, but I was exhausted. I was so tired. Like, I was just exhausted. So I went to sleep. I laid down on the little thing there, and I went to sleep, and I slept for 2 or 3 hours, and I didn't know what was going on. They let me have one phone call, and I thought, I need to call my mom, but it'd be better for me to call Steve because he can help me. Mm-hmm. So they gave me my one phone call, and he was like bawling his eyes out, like just crying and like, how are you feeling? Like, and Steve loved me. Like, I'm being negative about some of the things that we're going through with this, but he was a father figure to me, and he loved me, and he cared for me. And he was like less concerned about all the things, but like, how are you feeling about all this? And I was like, I'm confused. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I'm just confused.
And also I have to say, because you're such a slow processor, I mean, I can say that because we talk about that, like 24 hours. So like something this dramatic and traumatic and intense, it's happening so quickly. I can see how you just can't even process everything that's happening.
Well, they, I didn't know this then, but I heard it later. Like, Leonardo's world went crazy because Tony was like, because he was a defense attorney in Birmingham. And he was like working his angles and, trying to, and he told my mom, they've got a hold on him in another county. There's nothing that can be done for him. He might be in there for months before they even move him. And so, and they had called in some lawyers.
And you had been out for 8 years.
Yeah.
This is insane.
Spotless record. I mean, doing everything they told me to do.
Wow.
And then, it was funny. Shauna said they because you can pull up, you can go on a website and pull up when somebody gets arrested, and where they took my picture when I got arrested. And Shauna and Steve and all their family was looking at the picture, and they were like, "What do you think James is thinking there?" And she was like, "He's thinking, what the hell is going on here?" Because I was smirking or whatever. But they weren't telling me anything. I didn't know anything. I talked to Steve. I went back. I went to sleep, and I think I slept for like 6 hours. And they were sending me up to the violent floor. They were sending me up, and I was stuck. And here's something, just a fact that maybe you don't know. if you get arrested for a crime, like if I committed a crime in Jefferson County, I got arrested, you could come bond me out. But if I get arrested in Jefferson County with a hold from another county, then I can't get bonded out until I go to another county. And they hold me until that county comes and picks me up, which could be whenever they decide to come get me. Because, that's 4 hours away.
Yeah.
So I fall asleep. I'm there for like 6 hours in a holding cell. And they come and wake me up. And the lady tells me to put on my clothes. And so I was like, I still don't understand what's happening here. So I put my clothes on. And I walk out. And there's a sheriff from Dale County, which is Dothan, 4 hours away. He was like, man, you're lucky. And I said, why? And he said, I was en route to pick up somebody that was being held in the Hoover County, in the Hoover jail, that I was taking back to Dale County. And that was my only order, was to go pick them up and take them back to Dale County. And as I was passing Birmingham, I just happened to see that you got arrested. And I swung in here and picked you up. If I hadn't come here and picked you up now, it might have been 3 weeks before I would have got back. So you're very lucky. So I was thinking, okay, I'm lucky, or either Jesus got me. So they get me down. They take me to Dale County. They go to process me in. It was different there. They weren't like, it wasn't quite the Jefferson County is a violent jail. Mm-hmm. Like this is a big area in Jefferson County. So and this is, Dale County's a little like redneck town. The lady was sweet to me. She was like, well, baby, will somebody bond you out? And I said, yes, ma'am. She said, well, there's no reason for us to process you in or dress you out. So you just go in there and you just sleep and do whatever you need to do till the morning comes and you call your people to come bond you out. Can they do that? And I said, yes, ma'am. Somebody going to come bond me out. And she said, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. So I went in there, I went back to sleep, and I got like the best sleep because I hadn't had sleep. I was exhausted. So 6 o'clock, they called me out, and they put me on the phone. They said, your mom's on the phone. And Mama was screaming and crying. She's my mama. That's what she does. So she said that she wanted to come and get me, but Steve had called and asked her if he could do it with Mike Farrell, who's a friend of ours who went to our church. And, he'd been in prison, so he understood, everything. So they were coming to get me, and that they had just left. And she let them borrow her car and gave them the money and all the things. So that's 4 hours. So it's 6 o'clock. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I knew I had at least until 10 till they got there to get me. So I went back in there. I went back to sleep. I slept for like 20 minutes. They woke me up again. And they said, come out. And they said, go in this little thing where you talk through the glass. And there was a man sitting there that I didn't know, never seen him. And he said, I need you to sign these papers. I need you to not say a word. I need you to sign these papers. And then they're going to release you. You're going to walk out into the bay. You're going to take a right. You're going to walk straight out, and you're going to see a red Bronco. I need you to get in the red Bronco. And I was like,
this is like a freaking movie. Why aren't we doing this an episode crazy. By itself?
This should be an episode by itself. It was crazy. So I was like, but I was still half asleep. I was like, okay, sign my name. Walk out. I get in the car with him.
Who does that?
I get in the car. No, look, he looks over at me and he said, I don't know you. And I don't know why the hell I'm doing this. And I said, can we pause? Like, what are we doing? Like, what's happening?
Who are you and what the hell are you actually doing?
He said, I'm a bail bondsman. And I've never done this before. And I honestly, I don't know why I'm doing this. But I've got to go to Troy. And so I thought it would be nice. Your friends are coming to pick you up.
Wait, okay, stop.
I'm going to Troy. I'm just going to take you to Troy. We'll meet them there.
How did this guy even know about you in the jail?
Because they called and bonded him. Like,
okay, so I
think it was Mike Farrell. Like, he had been in prison. He had he had a rough record.
So they had called this connection.
Just a bondsman.
A bondsman.
So for some reason, this guy felt compelled to do all this weird stuff for me that he didn't know what he was doing. But then he looked at me and was like, "If you try anything stupid," and I was like, "What? I'm not. Whatever. Whatever." So we drive to Troy.
Wait, hold on. Let's pause. Hold on, I feel like
this is crazy. It is crazy.
I mean, I'm a very fast processor, and I feel like I need to hear this again. So he said you needed to, that right then and there, he was bonding you out.
I was already out. I was sitting in his car.
No,
We were driving away. I was not in jail anymore.
I'm talking about when you went to the glass.
I didn't know what he was doing.
Okay, so he
He
said,
looked at me. He said, I'm going to pass this to you. You need to sign this paper, and I need you to not speak a word about anything. I just need you to walk
you
out.
weren't skeptical?
I didn't know what to do. I was scared. But I was like, what is happening? Like, it didn't, and it was early in the morning, and I knew it didn't make any sense. Like, 4 hours to get from Birmingham to
So you
Dothan.
signed the papers.
I signed the papers.
And then you immediately walked out.
They set me free. They let me out.
And then you followed his instructions.
I walked
like, to
out.
the right,
He
red
said,
Bronco.
to the right. I walked out. There was a red Bronco. I jumped in the red Bronco, and we're on the highway.
I feel like this is like an OJ scene.
It was weird. It was weird. So then we're headed to Troy. No, it gets worse. It gets weirder. So we get to Troy.
You're headed to Troy.
And it's around like 8, like it's still early in the morning.
For all people listening, I have never heard this story, just so you know.
It was early in the morning, like nothing was happening. It was early. He pulls into a Kentucky Fried Chicken that was closed. So we're the only people in the parking lot. And I'm looking around like, and he starts
I'd be
smoking.
like, I'm finna die.
He starts smoking a cigarette, and I was like, can I have a cigarette? Like, I need to do something. So we're sitting there, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes. He's not talking to me. He's like weirded out. Like, what am I doing? Like, I think he's nervous because, he can get in trouble for that.
Right. For what? I don't even understand the whole... If he's a bondsman and he bonded you out, what can he get in trouble for?
He's supposed to bond me out when they hadn't even paid the bond.
Oh, they hadn't paid the bond. Okay.
It was just weird, and he kept saying, I don't know why I'm doing this. And I was like, I don't know why you keep saying that to me. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't even know what you're doing.
So Steve and Mike Farrell pull up in the Kentucky Fried Chicken parking lot. And so there's 2 cars there. The red Bronco, and they're driving.
This is early in the morning.
It's like 8 o'clock. They get out and they count out cash, $1,000 to him because I had a $10,000 bond, and just counting out $100 bills to him that my mom had gave him the money, but they're counting the money out to him, and to me it looked like a drug deal. Like I was like, if I was watching this, like if I was like standing on the side of the road watching this happening, I would think, they're getting crack or heroin or something. Something's happening. But who was I to say anything? I was helpless. I didn't know what to do. So they counted the money out, gave him the money. I jumped in the back of my mom's car, and they sped me off to Birmingham.
Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. Like, so he told the people, the powers that be at the jail or whatever, that he had the money. And that he's right?
The bondsman signed a bond.
Okay. Oh, so he did it. So basically, if Steve or whoever hadn't given him the money, he'd be on the hook for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was weird.
Yeah.
It was weird. But here's the deal. If I ever didn't think that Jesus was for me and that had his hand on me and was protecting me and running my life, I knew it now. Like I knew it now. Because they drove me back to Birmingham. Straight to Kairos Cafe because we're opening. They did. Well, pause for just a second.
Okay, so real quick, so pause the timeline here. So how long from the time that he put you in handcuffs, hands and feet, to right now they're driving you back to Birmingham?
So it was like 3 o'clock the day before. Mm-hmm. This was like 8 o'clock in the morning. We're headed back to Birmingham.
The next morning.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Okay, but pause. Here's a fun fact. For Kairos Cafe at this time in 2007. I'm the only one who knows how to cook. Nobody else knows how to cook. And another fun fact.
Minor snag, the only cook/owner gets arrested.
But another snag, this was our first party that we had been looking forward to. So I had 25 people coming in for a party at 10:30 this morning. And I'm the only one who knows how to cook. So this was weird. This is neat. This is neat. So speed me back towards Birmingham. Steve and Mike Farrell. I mean, I think we stopped one time and got gas, and I got some snacks or something. I
And
need
okay,
something.
I want to hear this, but like, did you unpack with Steve and Mike? Like, okay, what the heck is going on here?
I was in shock. By that time, I didn't want to talk about it.
That doesn't surprise me for you.
Out in shock. So we pull in to the parking lot of Kairos Cafe. It's like 11 o'clock when we get there. I walk through the back door. Lenora is physically walking into the kitchen with 25 tickets to hand to Jeremy, who doesn't know how to cook.
Like tickets, like orders.
The party that was out there. So we're trying to build this business, and we're desperate, and it's a mess. And it is. There's no way that you couldn't say that Providence, like, got me back where I needed to be, because you can't make this stuff up. So I walk in, they're all trying to holler at me, and all stuff. I put out the 25 orders.
That is insane.
And it was our first party. It was our very first party.
So from 3:00 p.m. the day before in the afternoon is when they cuffed your hands and feet, put you in the cop car.
They took me to Jefferson County,
and then you went to that other city,
Dale County,
Dothan,
Alabama.
And then that is insane.
It is crazy. But I put the food out. All was good.
Of course you did. I feel like that's such a James K. Jones
That's not really
story.
a James K. Jones story. It's more like a Jesus story.
Jesus got you there. But as far as like once you walked in the door, like, let's not celebrate. I just got to get to work.
Well, I did. I had to put the food out. They didn't know how to do anything.
Bless your heart. That's what I feel like.
But we got that done. We got cleaned up. I ran home, got dressed for my night shift at Leonardo's. Wasn't even really I was just like, I got to do what I need to do. Like, do the next thing. Put on my clothes, get to Leonardo's, and when I walked in the lobby of Leonardo's, Tony was there, and he had a bunch of his lawyer friends there. They were trying to figure out how to get me, how to bust me out, do whatever, but it was impossible. It was an impossible situation. They broke out into applause and cheers, and Tony was crying, Boo was crying.
So they didn't know you were out.
Mama told them that they were coming to buy me out, and Tony told Boo, I think Norma is just stressed out, and she don't know what she's saying.
And she's delusional.
No, he was a lawyer. He understood the law. He was like, there's no way. It can't happen. There's no way. It can't happen. But I'm like, well, I'm here. I'm ready to work my shift.
That makes me feel like
it was crazy.
I mean, that is a beautiful story and a Jesus story, and like
but it was very traumatic.
But it's also the fact that like you really didn't like get the time to like just like, okay, process that for a minute. I mean, that to me makes me a little bit.
No, that was probably better for me. I didn't need to think, because this weighed on me heavily for the next 6 months. Like, this was a trauma. Mm-hmm. Like, I was afraid to drive my car after this. I was like, I thought I was free. I thought I had, paid my debt to society and that I was free. But if they could come and just lock me up like that and all this could happen. But at this time, Steve was working for UAB Task part-time, so he had a lot of connections. So he went into, like, prison diversion zone kind of thing. And you have to understand this, too. I was broke. Like, I didn't have any money. I was in a desperate situation, and I knew that I couldn't have a public defender. Like, I'd have got 20 years out of that.
Yeah, golly.
So the next Sunday, there was a guy at our church. His name was Gary Bonham, and he had the gift of prophecy, which, a lot of people that say they have that gift don't. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't somebody that said that. But he called me up and said he wanted to pray for me. And he said, this is not a disaster. This is God clearing things out so that you can be successful. And he said, one day you're going to be a very rich man, and you're going to be very influential, and you're going to help millions of people. And I was like...
He said that to you?
Yeah, I was like...
Bring it on, baby!
No, but this is where I was then. I was like, okay. I mean, right now I'm just trying to hire a lawyer. So they did a special offering at church that Sunday. It was like for outreach or something. And I had a $50 bill in my wallet, and I felt like Jesus said, put that $50 in. I was like, I need this $50. And he was like, just trust me, put it in. So I put it in. And the special offering that they did that day, this was a congregation of like 100 people. The offering was like $35,000, which was like a record.
Wow.
Like, I don't even know what happened.
$35,000?
$35,000. Because this guy, Gary Bonham, was saying, like, we need to do a special offering. We need to outreach to the community. We need to do all this thing. Kind of like Legacy, what Pastor Chris does at our church now. So through this offering, I put my $50 in. I let Steve take over my legal stuff. He found a lawyer in Dale County that used to be a judge, so he knew what was going on. But he won a $5,000. He said, it'll be $5,000. This is a constitutional case. They can't do this. It'll be $5,000, but that'll be all you have to pay. So out of that offering, they paid the $5,000 to hire my lawyer.
Oh my God!
But beyond them, it was like Jesus told me to put my $50 in that bucket, and I didn't want to do it, but I did it by faith. And it was like, there's a scripture where it says, if you give, it'll be multiplied 10, 20, 100-fold. It was like, thank you for the 100-fold. But anyways, they paid that, and the lawyer's name was Michael Crespi. He was fantastic. I never saw him, never met him face to face, just talked to him on the phone. But he was like, they can't do this. Like, they can't do this to you. But just the outpouring of people after that, like, we didn't make it public, but just like my Linda O'Brien, she wrote a letter for me in that season because Steve was like collecting letters,
which was your parole officer, just to remind everyone. Yeah,
she was my parole officer, my first parole officer. But the lawyer was saying, we don't need the letters, we don't need to do all that. Like, that's not what this is. They can't do that. It's constitutional. You have a constitutional right to a fast and speedy trial. They violated that. It's been, by that time, it had been 15 years.
15? I thought you said it had been 8.
I'd been out 8. It had been like
15 years.
8 plus the 7 that I'd been in. So,
right.
It happened
Okay.
92.
Okay.
So anyways, he settled it. They dropped it. And I was, I never had to go to court. I never had to do anything. But it was very traumatic. But at the same time, it made it increased my faith. Like, I understood, like, God is for me. If he can let them come and arrest me and take me 4 hours away and get me back in time to cook lunch the next day.
And you probably got more sleep than you would have ever gotten.
I did. Well, Wanda was the best one during that time. She was my bus person.
Yeah.
She was like, we were wringing our hands, stressed out, going crazy. And you were over there sleeping. I don't even make no sense. So...
Oh, that's great.
It was neat. So, but after that...
It was neat.
No, I mean, it wasn't neat what happened, but it was neat the way that God's hand was on that. There was no way that could have... And then, that night when I went in at Leonardo's and all those lawyers were there in Tony, they were like, what the hell?
Disbelief.
And I was just like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm here. I need to make...
I know what you wanted to say.
I need to shift.
This is what you needed to say. He's an on-time God. yes, he is.
And in that case, he really was. He was an on-time God.
Yeah.
So, but right after this, I felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is hard. I just need to push through and figure it out. So my house wouldn't sell. So I had rent payment, I had a mortgage, I had it was just so many bills were just piling up on me. But I felt like I had learned, like, years before, like, if you're going to be totally committed to the future, you have to let go of the past. And so I told Tony, it's time for me to go. I got to go. I got to be 100% with Kairos.
So in other words, to quit Leonardo's.
Yeah. And it was hard. And, it ended up having a fallout with my mom over that. She didn't want me to do all that. And it was scary, but I stepped out in faith and did what I needed to do and kept moving forward. Right after that, I read that guerrilla marketing book.
Oh, I thought you'd already read it cover to cover.
I did. It was in this time. This was
it was all kind of blended, yeah.
So I had an idea. The premise of the book was like, don't try to do like traditional stuff. Find something you can do that you don't have to spend money at.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up with an idea to do an email newsletter to where I would share, like, this is the news, what's happening. It would be a weekly newsletter. I would share some news, share some food, specials, stuff like that. Put a coupon in there. If you come in, you get a free drink or dessert. It's a different coupon every week. And then, but I also put like a devotional in there. Like, this is what I'm learning through this process.
Mm-hmm.
And that ended up actually building my business, one person at a time. And
because that, now this I know a little bit about, but because that newsletter ended up, how many, like at the end, did
it blew up. I was 5,000-6,000 people reading my newsletter.
Which is all organic, really.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I was just like hijacking people's email addresses. But we put out like a newsletter sign up. You can get a free dessert if you sign up for the newsletter, stuff like that. But it ended up like gaining traction. And I had several people reach out to me and tell me, I use this as my devotional on Monday, because I would send it out. It would be there on Monday. And it would just have like the specials. This is what we're doing. Here's a coupon. Trying to add value to people. And I would put a little devotion. This is what I'm learning. I'm struggling. This is hard, but this is how I'm doing.
So yeah, it was what you were learning personally.
Yeah. And it was very like kind of like the podcast. I was being very vulnerable with people, intimate, and it started growing my business.
That's
and
awesome.
We went from there, but then there was like a game changer. It was right after that. I had a guy from the Birmingham News that called. His name was Roy Williams. He was a writer for the Birmingham News. And he said, I've got, your story came across, that you're in prison and the restaurant and being connected to the church and all stuff. Can I come and do a story? And I said, yeah. So he came and did a story, but he got so excited when he was interviewing me. But he was a Jesus follower, so he kind of knew some of the stuff that I was talking about. But his brother was in the military and was in the Pentagon when it got hit by the plane on 9/11, and he died in it. And so something about him trying to make sense of all, because this was like 6 years later, so he was he was suffering through that, like, and something about my story helped him. And I can't remember exactly how he connected, but he was like just poured his heart out to me about, because this was painful, the stuff that he'd been through. But he ended up writing the story. He said it would probably be a little story somewhere in there, but they ended up putting it on the front page of I think it was the religion section. But when the story came out, I was the full front page cover, color picture, and the headline said, "God gets the glory at Kairos Cafe."
We should put that on our Patreon.
Yeah,
for our patrons. Yeah.
But that with the email, and then that happening, then that put me, for some reason, everybody came after that. And then I guess we'll end with one of the stories that just warms my heart more than anything was Brandon was working with me.
This is my favorite.
He didn't work with me all the time. It was like I would let him pick up shifts when he could because he was in school.
Yeah.
I think he was in 11th grade.
Now this is just to refresh people's memory.
Tell him.
So Brandon was the one who came on. He was 14 at Leonardo's as a dishwasher, and who started going to church. Asked if he could go to church with James, and James just really took him under his wing. And I mean, Brandon to this day is a part of our lives and family. And
he's like my son.
He's like a son, and
He
they
is.
took a trip. Yeah, and it's just been a really neat relationship, like father-son, which is neat because you didn't really have a father who fathered you.
And he didn't either.
But you became that role in his life.
Yeah.
So Brandon, who started working for you at Kairos, so
He asked me, he said, they do cooking on Fox 6. And I said, that's good. And he said, you could go cook on Fox 6. It's right up on the hill by Vulcan. And I said, Brandon, they don't know who I am. And he was like, well, they do local chefs and you're a chef. So I said, well, that's nice. But I mean, they don't care about me.
which is such a James response, let me just say.
I didn't think they did. So I got a call. It was from the producer of Good Day, Alabama. And he said, the reason I'm calling you is you have a young man. Well, Brandon had asked me if he could pursue it. And I was like, sure, Brandon, sure. Go ahead, whatever.
Whatever.
So, but I didn't think anything would come from that. So he called and he said, you have a young man that works for you. His name is Brandon, and he is the most persistent person that I've ever known. So we do a cooking segment, 5 days a week. And before we let anybody like come on the show, you have to do a test, like a test tape. So would you be willing to come in and do a test? And I was like, well, what does that mean? He was like, you just bring in a recipe, you cook it, you prepare it on TV. And I was nervous, but I was like, well, yeah. And so he set up a cook test for me, and I was kind of excited, but kind of not, because I was like, I can't cook on TV. I mean, I can cook, but not on TV. So we get in there. It was a tape, so it wasn't live, so there was no pressure. There wasn't even a lot of the crew there because it was after hours. And I go in there, and Janice Rogers is standing there. And
so who's Janice Rogers?
She's a local anchor for Fox 6, Good Day, Alabama. She's been there since, I think, 92, 91, 92.
Yeah.
The short story is I met Janice Rogers on TV, like just watching her do the news on TV when I was in prison at Donaldson.
Oh, wow.
So it's like I felt like I knew her. Like I've been watching you on TV for like 15 years.
Long time. Mm-hmm.
But it started in prison, the first 3 or 4 years, because I watch the news I'm a news person. I want to catch up on the news. So here we are. And I'm cooking. I think I did the grilled chicken tenderloins with honey mustard. I did sauteed spinach. And I was so, like, in awe.
Were you starstruck?
Well, no, it was like I'm standing here with Janice Rogers. You know how many hours I've watched Janice Rogers do news. And of course, I didn't tell her that. I told her later. I didn't tell her in the beginning. But we got through. You had to do it in like you had between 4 and 6 minutes. They'd already prepped me on all that. And we did it, and I wasn't even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And he came running out, and he was like, "You did it! You're amazing!" And I said, "What do you mean? Can we use this on TV?" And I was like, yeah. But he said, what we get with chefs is they can either cook or they can talk. He said, but you have to be able to cook and talk if you want to be on TV. And he said, you're just a natural. You just cook and talk. And I was like, okay.
Who knew?
But anyways, they set me up with a monthly... Actually, no, in the beginning I did once a month on Good Day, Alabama, and I did once a month on Noonday, Alabama, and that just helped me get my name out, more.
And I love that started with Brandon's, like, just tenacity. And
I took him with me. Yeah. He was with me. He was amazed. But that's Brandon. That's who he is. Neat. That's how he is. That's what he does.
So full circle, just all that, like, struggle and, like, I say negativity, but I really just mean like how hard it was. And then it even it culminated with like the arrest. But then after that, there was you could see some things like start to happen.
Well, there was new life breathed in me after that.
Yeah.
Because there was no way I got out of that.
Right.
And I got out of that.
It was a miracle.
Full and clean break.
Yeah.
But everything about that was a miracle. And I think I got Steve. I didn't actually do it. Steve did it. He was like recruiting people to write letters.
To who? For what?
To the judge for James, like character references and stuff like that. And probably the most special one is the one that Linda O'Brien wrote. But I have a box that I have all those letters in because that just, I don't know. There's something about that. It's very touching.
Mm.
But through all that, I hate that I'm talking about being negative, like towards Steve and towards Lenore and towards Jeremy. And it wouldn't always be that way, but this was the season I was in, and it was hard, and it was compounded because of Shauna and our relationship and all the things that we were going through. So I'm just trying to keep it real where I was at.
Well, you're saying that you kind of jumped. You said the letter that meant the most to you was the one from Linda O'Brien.
Yeah. Maybe we'll put that on Patreon and read it. Or maybe we'll read it on the recap.
Yeah, I want to read it.
No, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Basically, what she said was, I've been doing this for 18 years, and I've had people come to her that said they changed. And I've never really witnessed it be real until I met James. And there's something different about him. His change was internal instead of like behavior modification. And I don't, for me, that's not crediting me. That's Jesus, because that's the way he changes us. You know, he goes to work on the things that are behind the things that you do.
Right.
Like and I learned that, you know, when I was going through counseling in 1998, we focus on this. Like, we focus on this, like, somebody has a problem and they're mean or they're an alcoholic or they're an addict or whatever. We focus on this, but it's not even, like, when you only focus on the this, you never get anywhere, because it's not about this, it's about that. So the problem is not that you have an like you have anger or addiction or, you know, any kind of any problems that you have. There's like a root behind that. So, but as human beings, all we see is the fruit. We see what comes out of that. But Jesus don't really care about the fruit. He wants to get to the root, because if he can get to the bottom of what is creating that behavior, then it's changed forever. It's gone. Yeah. So it's not behavior modification.
Give me all the roots, baby. Dig them up. Yes.
Well, if you want that, you have to be in a relationship with him.
Right.
And you know, religion won't give you that.
Yeah.
Going to church won't give you that. You know, judging people, fussing, doing all that carrying on won't give you that. But when you get in a relationship with him, he changes you from the inside out. And I'm thankful.
Amen.
For that.
I agree. Okay, so what's next?
So I think the next thing we need to talk about, you know, the business was up and going.
You were on Fox 6. You had the news article.
We're just growing. We're growing. We're doing a thing. You know, but it began a shift in me, because I realized that my story that I didn't always want to be public was now public, and that it was helping people.
Yeah.
And then it not only helped people like as customers, it started bringing people to me that wanted to work with me. And somewhere during that season, I realized my purpose here was to have a restaurant and do a business, but it wasn't so much the outreach that I had to my customers. It was going to be the outreach that I had to my staff. So people came to me that after my story became public, that probably would have never become vulnerable with me and told their story, that came on board and worked with me. And, you know, we can tell that another time. Some of the, multiple stories of people that came. You know, working in a restaurant is not going to be like an end all.
Right.
But like being with me for a season and going through and just neat. It's just neat. I realize this is where I'm at. It's where I'm supposed to be. But I think in the next episode, we need to talk about that summer of 2007, because, and I know you've been itching at the chomp to tell this story.
OMG, listen.
Yeah, but it needs to be an episode by itself.
Stay tuned, people. For real.
We talked about it in season 2 when I was going through counseling. You know, I came to a place where I had to tell some of my secrets, my family secrets, and one of those family secrets was that, you know, my biological father was not my dad. Was not James Keith Jones Sr. I'm James Keith Jones Jr. So my mom and my dad moved to Denver, Colorado right after they were married. He was in the Air Force. She didn't want to be there. She was straight out of Phoenix City. And when they
this is going to be
she was 18 years old, and when they got out there, she was so frustrated with him that she split up with him. And she got a little apartment, a little roommate, a little job, and a little...
Okay, that's part of the story I didn't know.
What part?
That she got her own apartment and roommate.
No, she left him. Like, they were split up.
We need to not get crazy, because we're going to do this the whole next episode.
Okay, anyways, long story short, she had some relations with a Greek man, found herself to be pregnant, and she thought she was pregnant with Mr. Jones's baby, so they got back together.
Did she think that, though?
Yeah, she did. I believe her. She did. She was like counting up, you know, whatever. She actually went to get an abortion because in 1972 or 71, 72, whatever, like that was when abortion started being normal. But she said when she went, she couldn't do it because she got scared. So anyways, they got back together. They reconnected. He got transferred to Tampa, Florida, to MacDill Air Force Base. I was born, came out, you know, they're white people, blonde hair, blue eyes. I had a dark-skinned Greek baby. And they decided to keep it a secret. But I found out when I was 17. It caused me a lot of problems. But now was my time to go uncover that secret and find out who my biological father was. So
Best story ever, let me tell you.
it is a neat story.
It's insane, actually.
I mean, it's kind of like the getting arrested thing. You know, these things that happen shouldn't have happened.
In my mind, it's even more insane than that. I mean, that's insane, but it's just like, when you first told me this, which I honestly, I can't even wait, because I feel like you're going to say more details that I haven't learned, because when you get in the zone, you like remember things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can't wait to, stay tuned.
Stay tuned, guys. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in.
All right. See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to the Straight Outta Prison podcast. For more exclusive content, head over to our website, timjones.co/podcast.
Yes, you can subscribe by clicking on the Become a Patron button, and that's going to get you access to our For Real Reel, which is very different than the Highlight Reel. Some very juicy content there.
Good stuff. Or you can look us up on Facebook and Instagram, Straight Outta Prison Podcast.
Yes, that takes the story to a whole new level, where you can see some of the people that James talks about in his story and see some of the places that he's been. I've been loving it, and you will too.
Prison recipes.
Yeah, all the things.
Good stuff. We'll see you soon, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Getting anything out of these videos, please hit the like button, the subscribe. If you never want to miss a recipe or anything I do, hit the little bell and you'll get notifications.
Says he's not getting back in the pool until you come. I don't know why, but he's waiting for you. I love you, Dad.
I love you.